Continuing chapter 2, which is about Satan's devices to draw the soul to sin, we're going to be looking at device 5. Satan causes us to see only God's mercy, but hides his judgment from us. And I think that's a very common problem today, that people think God is merciful and loving, so he certainly couldn't have anything against me, couldn't find any fault with me because he's so loving. How could he possibly judge me in any way? It's a complete misunderstanding of God. It might be what we think would serve us best, but actually it wouldn't serve us best either. But that might be what a lot of people think. So, how do we counteract that way of looking at things when we have to admit it's very common today in our culture to think God is so good he couldn't possibly want to judge against sin? Remedy 1. When God abandons a person to continue in sin, it's a bad thing. When a person finds the way to hell is free of obstacles, that means that person has grown so used to the stink of death that it has become undetectable. God abandoned Ephraim to its idolatry in Hosea 4:17. A person God has abandoned cannot be taught to do right. In Psalm 81 verse 12 it says, "So I gave them over to their stubborn hearts to follow their own counsels." Such a soul is ripe for hell. The point is that sometimes God, as it says in the beginning of the book of Romans, he just turns people over to their evil desires. The fact that they don't have a guilty conscience or are not willing to admit that they have a guilty conscience about it doesn't indicate that it's okay. What it indicates is that God has let go of them. God's going to let them go. Remedy 2. God is both just and merciful. Both just and merciful. God cast Adam out of Eden. In Genesis 3:24, we read about that. God drowned all life except what was with Noah in the ark. And in Genesis 7:17-23, we read about that. The third remedy, the first one, understand that when people don't feel guilty, it may mean that God has abandoned them. Second remedy, understand that God is both just and merciful, not just one or the other. Remedy 3, if you commit sin and excuse your action by saying God is merciful, God's judgment will be especially severe. Think about the parable of the unmerciful servant in Matthew 18, verses 21-35. And I'm not going to read all of it, but you can read it for yourself. In the link below, you can read the lesson. It's printed out there. But Jesus told about a man who owed millions of dollars. And his master was going to throw him in jail. And the man pleads with him, and the master is merciful. Then as he's leaving, the man had actually promised the master that he would repay him, which was kind of pointless because he couldn't possibly do it. He, on his way out, runs into a man who owes him 2 or 3 days' wages. And he has that man thrown into prison. The master hears about it. He calls him back and he says, okay, I'm going to throw you into prison since you didn't accept my forgiveness. And you may say, wait a minute, how do you mean he didn't accept his forgiveness? No, he didn't really accept the forgiveness. He was going to still try to pay it back even though he'd been forgiven. And the proof that he didn't really understand forgiveness is if you really understand forgiveness and you've really received it, you're going to show it to other people too. You're going to treat other people with the same kind of forgiveness you've received. And if you don't, well, maybe you didn't really understand forgiveness because you never really started to live as if you were forgiven. So this is a challenge to Christians, is just because God is merciful doesn't mean that's the end of the story and you can go ahead and do whatever you want. No, his judgment is still there. But if you want to go with mercy, you've got to go all the way with mercy and show mercy to others. But if you're not going to show mercy to others and insist on judgment, then God's judgment is going to fall on you too. So what's it going to be? Remedy 4 and 5 are there for you to read in the link below.